millions of my accidents. Should a murderer go to jail for murdering?
Absolutely.
Should a thief go to jail when he steals?
Absolutely.
Should a robber pay back the money he robbed?
Absolutely.
So why shouldn't the white man pay for what he did?
That's right. That's right.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a
I'm in a hell of a hole, was never expected to grow. Just obstacles set in the road, that a result of me selling my soul. The story I'm telling is cold, but yet it's what everyone knows. The white man's the devil is known. America was never a home, only a place of captivity, safe facility, hating, disfigure me. They claim that I'm lazy, be killing me. Maybe this slavery draining my energy. 400 years and counting, the trail of my tears is countless. Main fact that I'm here is astounding, but I can't wait till this shit is surrounded. Ready to tangle my king and the angels, be ready to rap. Cracking the sky, nuclear missiles will make it official. I'm capturing every crack and surviving. Put them all in chains where they need to be, slavery for me. And let the whole world see that with them in the cage and safer in the streets. Put the dog on a leash, get resolved for the beast. 144, get the ruler show, we could all be at peace. As soon as the trumpets are sound, your kingdom we busting it down. The only way justice is found, the time for your judgment is now.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a
Look, ain't no remorse in my blood slim. It won't be no compromise. Now it's time to feed the worms. Watch his body turn to flies. I clutch iron while you trust the lies. The next Glock I buy gon' be Gen 5. I get it customized. And sending shots off like farewell. Praying payback come back around like a carousel. Still remember your Honda's words ringing in my head like bells. Said you in this body, you fit a Lord, fuck the cartel. Triangle choke, apply pressure to the game like I did Vondale. Payback's a bitch in a dress, she a bombshell. Revenge is served cold, I just hope they make an oxtail. Glock fresh out the box, I swear it got that new car smell. Made myself a target in the world of mad shooters. Devils design fire for our babies to pass through. In the day of our king's reign, I'll be overzealous. They bought my jealous, I bought brand new parabellums.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog.
Hey Shalom, this is the ISUPK Wednesday history class. Remember to check out Commanding General Yohanna's radio show, which is Monday, 2 a.m. UK time. We also have classes here in the UK. We have classes from the school, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. till 9. Monday being the law class, Wednesday being the history, which is today, Thursday being the scripture breakdown. The online, Tuesday, we have the brotherhood class. Friday online, the Lashwan Kodash class, or Officer Alban will have it from a place in Manchester. We also have the Sabbath service, and if there's any questions, just put them in the chat, and we'll get to them. But today we're going to go into revealing what was found in the catacombs, man.
Oh, will it go to a question from Ira as well?
Yeah, all right, no shit. All right, no shit. So now we're going to go into the catacombs. And if you know anything about the catacombs is what? Graves which was underground burial sites, and these existed around the 3rd century, like 200 AD and so forth. They used to be buried in underground cemeteries, but because we've got a lot to go through, I'm gonna jump straight into it. So this right here, it says what was found in the ancient catacombs. So this right here is, hold on, let me see if I can read it from there. So now this right here is the first slide we're gonna go to. It says, but before we consider the work of the first source, the question may well be asked why the Christians went to the enormous toll of digging underground cemeteries. The Jews at Rome, for example, did the same thing, but their catacombs are not anterior in date to the Christian ones. However, the digging of catacombs in Christians is not a universal phenomenon, as in many places, including Rome. Christian cemeteries are found above ground. So now it's letting you know Christian cemeteries that also had some above ground, but because they was running out of space, what did they do? Started to put some of these cemeteries underground. So we're gonna get to that part. Hold on, let's read.
Like, you know, the one in France, apparently.
Yeah, Paris, the Paris catacombs. Yeah, there's one there. Is that the one with all the skulls?
It's famous.
Yeah.
It's skulls on the wall and that.
Yeah, that's the ones with real life skulls on the wall. And one of the inscriptions of the ones in Paris, it says, "I was like you before. One day you're gonna be like me." And they got that on the skeleton. So most of the famous catacombs, you find them in Rome. Why? Because Israelites dwelt in Rome. Early Christians dwelt in Rome. Why? Because they was ruled by the Roman Empire. So now the greatest catacombs you're gonna get is the ones in Rome, and then they name them like Saint Calicus, Saint Peter's tomb, Saint this, Saint that. So hold on, we're gonna read on. Christian cemeteries are found above ground. This was both a far easier method of burial and the only possible one where the terrain was an obstacle to tunneling. It was about the year AD 150 that a beginning was made in the long series of Christian catacombs, and the development of these was to continue for several hundred years. The idea of an underground tomb chamber was common in antiquity, and such chambers dating back from prehistoric times onwards. So now, remember that these go back to prehistoric times. These catacombs go back to early Christian, just after Christ, about the time of 150 AD. They got catacombs dating back from then. So let's read on. It says the Christians started from the rock cut sepulchre, closed with a stone. So this is how their burial started. Everyone's read the scripture with Christ where they would put you in the tomb and roll a stone in front of it. And cut sepulchre closed with a stone in which the body of Jesus was laid. And the earliest Christian underground tombs were probably, hold on, bear with me. Shalom Shabbat. Christians' underground tombs were probably no more than, well, is this right, in small chambers such as were sometimes constructed by individual families even when catacombs existed. So now, firstly, understand with catacombs, don't think that everybody that was buried in the catacomb was all the same religion, because pagans used the same burial sites also. Sometimes multiple people was buried on one person's land. So what happened in Rome, you was allowed to dig your own graves. So when people would dig underground to bury, they would sometimes do it on pagan people's land who would allow them to use the land as a burial place. So what you'll find is some of the catacombs, you'll find pictures of Hercules in there, and then you're wondering if this is a Christian thing, why am I finding Hercules in there? Because there was also pagans that was buried in the same place at this early stage. They didn't have separate burials for Christians and for the people what you would call pagans. So let me get my next slide. So Lucky, can you get that one for me, Benjamin?
Canada one cancer. The initial stage in the construction of a catacomb was to dig a tunnel into a hillside.
So now I'm showing you how a catacomb's made. So now a catacomb is made by someone digging a tunnel, and when you see how these catacombs was constructed, it will make you realize that these people that was making these catacombs had skills. Don't think like how you think now that those people back then didn't know anything. They was constructing buildings from a long time ago. They constructed the catacombs, and this is how they done it. Go ahead.
Perhaps from an abandoned quarry for Pozzolana, or to make a stairway downward from the surface to the.
So that's why these catacombs, they have stairways. Because some of them was what? Had 5 floors. Some of them you had ladders to get down. Some of them had 5 floors. Why? Because as more people became Christian and needed to get buried, they had to do an extension on certain catacombs. Now, there's some catacombs which extend 12 miles, 13 miles. There's some catacombs which is so wide and so long that if you go in there, it's possible to get lost. Go ahead. Go ahead,
From
Benjamin.
such a beginning, the making of the catacomb progressed. Presumably, according to some sort of plan, though we cannot always trace this. Passages were dug generally at right angles to the original one, and these might lead.
So now they're letting you know that they dug the
other
passages from right angles. Go ahead.
and these might lead into other parallel to the first passage. But deviations were sometimes necessary, as for instance, where the diggers met with tufa of the wrong sort. Then construction continued downward.
So instead of them going straight across, they would just dig downwards. And that's why some catacombs go deep. So Lucky, give me this one. I'm trying to get through the first bit for time's sake. The first bit is all about the construction of a catacomb. So Lucky, go ahead.
To a second, third, fourth, and even fifth level.
So now,
sometimes
this is letting you know that catacombs had a second, third, fourth, and fifth level. Meaning what? Some catacombs had 5 floors. Some catacombs go so deep that you wouldn't even know. And in these catacombs, what was in these catacombs? Bodies, art, relics, all sorts of things was in these catacombs. But as we get further into the class, we're going to show some of the catacomb art that you've probably never seen in your life. We're going to show you some art which was found in these catacombs. And we're going to show you, just stick around. So, okay, go ahead, Benjamin.
though sometimes this process was reversed and a higher level was superposed on a lower one. From time to time, light wells, luminaria or luminaria, were dug which served both to let light into the catacomb and to facilitate the removal to the surface of excavational materials.
So now when they was digging these catacombs, they used to throw the dirt in a basket, and they had loads of workers there. They would put the dirt in a basket, take that basket away, dig more, take that basket away. And then sometimes the light that you would get in these catacombs wasn't from a window. It was from just a little gap of the earth that you would see. So imagine you're under the ground and a little gap of dirt moved away over your head. Through that little hole, that's the light that would come into the catacombs. So if you didn't have an oil lamp, you'd be down there in the pitch dark with dead bodies. Go ahead.
These were furnished with footholds to enable a person to climb up or down, and in later times, even to this day, were the recipients of debris thrown from above.
Go ahead.
Contiguous catacombs might, in course of time, become linked to each other, but on some occasions they were carefully left separate.
Nowadays, people speak about the catacombs, and there's so much different catacombs. There's hundreds of them, and all these different catacombs had different art in there. Now, these catacombs, how different martyrs, how different so-called saints or whatever, how different people's bodies in there. So now, who was the most famous person that was in that catacomb? That was how catacombs got their names, based off who was the most famous person buried in that catacomb. Go ahead.
But on some occasions they were carefully left separate. A good example of the linking process is to be found in the catacomb of Priscilla at Rome, where several separate burial areas existed about the end of the 2nd century.
Go ahead.
One connected with an arenarium and another with the region of Capella Graeca.
Go ahead.
The Capella was originally a separate tomb, and different regions had their own staircases for access.
And different regions of these tombs had their own staircases for access. So now, if you buried a loved one in these catacombs, you would come and visit. But the people who was watching over these catacombs, what they would do, they'd record how much times you visit. And then once you stop visiting, guess what they would do? They would sell your plot to somebody else. they would get rid of your plot and give it to somebody else. Go ahead.
Canada and Khan. The capella was originally a separate tomb, and different regions had their own staircases for access. The Capella Greca belonged to a rich family, but the tombs of the region of Arenamium are those of Christian community.
Go ahead.
Thus, by the end of the 3rd century, the Christians owned a large property almost at the gates of Rome.
So once Christians became more popular, they began to own more property. Now, in the beginning, they was burying anywhere they could. And we're going to go into why they was burying anywhere they could. And we're also going to go into why they was burying in catacombs. Go ahead.
That those buried in different areas belong to different social classes is shown by the tomb of the Asili, added to this complex sometime later. New entrances were also made particularly in order to render the tombs of martyrs more easy for access.
So now back then, they used to be in love with the martyrs. A martyrs is a man that basically dies for their religious beliefs. So now the Christians was in love with the martyrs, and they had to make staircases and make it more accessible for them to visit the graves of the martyrs. So they used to do that to make it more accessible, so they could go visit the graves of the martyrs. Let me get the next one. Slacky, go ahead.
Canada and cancer. The catacombs were preferably dug in a kind of tufa called capellaxio,
So that's like some material that they would dig in. Go ahead.
bad hat, in Roman dialect rather than in other types of tufa, such as terroso, earthy. Or
Actually,
the,
no, this one for time's sake, because that's basically saying the same thing. So look at this picture right here. This picture is how a catacomb would look. So now, if you look at the top, imagine at the top of there is where you would just be living your life right at the top. Let me see if I can put the cursor on it. Can you see the cursor on it? Would it show on there? Oh. So this is where you would be living your life, just walking. This is where you would be today. And then if you walk and move a slab, under it would be all this. All of this would be under it. So these things right here that you're seeing, this is where the bodies would go. So you see these 3 things here? It would have one body there, one body there, one body there. This right here would be somebody's grave where they go and visit their family. And then someone else's family would be down here. This would be their catacomb right here. And then as you go further down these stairs, there would be more burials going on here. And then as you go down here, there's more burials. So these was like big catacombs. So so now, sometimes people would hide in these catacombs. If you're fleeing from Roman persecution or whatnot, you would hide underground in the catacombs. So now that's why you find pictures of brothers reading scrolls in the catacombs. Now, according to history, they tell you that they didn't hold services in the catacombs because it was too small. But a few brothers hid in there. So as far as holding services in there, like what people tell you, according to history, they tell you that part's not true. But in history, brothers did hide in the catacombs, hiding from Romans and whoever they're hiding from. So lucky, get me this one.
Canada and cancer. In the walls of an intricate network of galleries, which form a real maze, are rows of tombs called lusuli. This type of rectangular tomb normally would fit only one corpse, though there are many that would fit 2 or more.
So now it would fit one corpse. After a while, they started to put 2 and 3 and more in there. Go ahead.
The bodies were placed in the lusulus, not in a coffin, but simply wrapped in a sheet of cloth.
But simply wrapped in a sheet. So what they would do, they would wrap them in a sheet, like how they wrap Christ in a sheet. They would wrap them in a sheet, and then what they would do, they would put them in then they would put them in the graves and so forth. He's got it already. So lucky, go ahead.
The corpse might have been sprinkled with lime, more often with scents.
So now they would sprinkle them with lime. Why? Because they wanted to preserve the bodies. So that would preserve the bodies. So they would sprinkle them with lime, and then they would put like perfume in there as well to mask the stench. Because these men wasn't putting coffins in the catacombs, they was just putting that little hole in the wall. Go ahead.
Sometimes a small vessel of those perfumes was placed in the tomb.
And they'd put a small bottle of perfume in the tomb. Why? Because perfume smells nice. So they put this in there to mask the stench of the dead body. Go ahead.
After the burial, the Lusulsus was closed with tiles,
And then
bricks,
after that, they would close up. You see how the road a stone over Christ is one? With this one, they would close where he was buried with tiles and sticks and so forth. And then over time, on these tiles and sticks, this would become like your headstone. So people would write your name on there and what your occupation was and who you was. And that's how people who knew who you was when you was buried there. Because they'd write your name on these tiles. And then over time, artists begin to drive on the paint on the plasterboard. So they began to draw art on these plasterboards in the catacombs to decorate the catacombs. And we're going to show you some of the decorations in the catacombs as we go on. So lucky, go ahead, Brendan.
Canada concert, closed with tiles, bricks, or thin marble slabs, which were secured with plaster or mortar.
And now once they secured it with plaster, just think if a plaster's a wall, that's so no one can get in. So on this plaster wall, they begin to draw art on this plaster wall. On this plaster, Shalom Lord and Christ, on this plaster wall, they begin to draw art and all of those kind of things. Yes, Lucky, go ahead.
Canada Khan, composed of lime and sand or pozzolana. Ordinarily, an oil lamp was placed beside the tomb.
And they'll put oil lamps in there, and this was the light whenever you was in there. Go ahead.
This is similar to the affectionate custom we still have of taking flowers or candles to the tomb of our loved ones.
And now when people go to graves, what do they bring? Candles. So this is where they get it from. So in the catacombs, instead of bringing candles, they'll bring an oil lamp. So obviously you might ask what happens when the oil runs out. Then they'll just replace the oil and bring another oil lamp. So them catacombs, they'll just bring oil lamps and oil lamps to keep a light next to their loved one. Kind of like today, you put flowers in a candle. Go ahead.
It was exactly in the round holes that we see beside the Lucili in the...
So if you look at the catacombs, once you see the rectangle part where the body goes, to the left would be a circle part, and that's where the lamp would go. So Lucky, get me this one.
Canada on cancer. On the Via Appia Antica, about 2 miles from Aurelian walls of Rome, there is a locality that became known in antiquity as Ad or in Catacombs. From the second half of the 3rd century AD, a center of Christian veneration of the apostles Peter and Paul existed here, and from the 4th century, a Christian underground burial place.
So this underground burial place is the catacombs. So this right here is a history book telling you about the apostles Peter and Paul existed. So whenever people tell you that Peter and Paul don't exist, you say to them, how come historians before you know that they existed? They know before they existed. People always ask you, what happened to all the burial sites of all the prophets? Why can't we find the graves of this person and that person? And so forth. But we're going to get into that also. Why can't you find the graves? So Lucky, go ahead.
From this site, though in fact it was not the earliest of its type,
now the earliest site of catacombs. Why? Because there are catacombs everywhere. Go ahead.
The name catacomb has spread to other underground cemeteries in widely separated countries.
So now, understand this, a catacomb ain't one place. A catacomb is spread to multiple countries. Wherever they have burials on the ground, it's called a catacomb. But some of the most famous catacombs is the catacomb of Calixtus and most of the ones in Rome, catacombs of Priscilla. Those are some of the most famous ones. Go ahead.
The most notable catacombs are those in the immediate vicinity of Rome, but important ones are found at Naples, at Syracuse, and other places in Sicily, in Malta.
Catacombs in all these other places. Go ahead.
And in North Africa and in the east of Emesa in Syria.
So now, understand this, they found catacombs all over the place. I don't know if you know, but they got catacombs in London. There's catacombs in London that we probably walk past them every day without a care in the world.
So like you said.
Go ahead.
So like a catacomb is a burial place of prophets.
No, not just the prophets, of anyone that's buried underground.
All right. Okay.
So okay, go ahead.
So, bro wants a question on because he needs to know scripture where it says Israel is nations.
He needs to know the scripture that says what Israel
Is nations.
is
Like,
nations.
Israel can be the other nations, or like I think you get Hittite or Israelites in time, or
Let me quickly get that before I go back into this. So,
something screenshot now.
let me drop it. Hakayan, get me James chapter 1 and verse 1 real quick.
Put it on constant.
Get me James chapter 1 and verse 1. And then Banyamin, you get me Acts chapter 2 and verse 5. I might need. Actually get me John chapter 11 and verse 52. So I'll do this the quick way. So get me James chapter 1 and verse 1.
James 1 verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting.
So this is how we became in all nations, because the 12 tribes is scattered abroad. So now what would happen? If you was scattered and ended up in England, you would call yourself English. If you was scattered and ended up in Jamaica, you would call yourself Jamaican. So that's how we became all nations, because the 12 tribes of Israel was scattered abroad. So okay, go ahead, give me the one that you've got, Benjamin.
Another one comes, sir. John chapter 11, verse 52. And not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad.
So now Christ died so he can gather all the children of Israel that was scattered abroad. So all the Israel being in every nation, they're all coming back. So whenever someone tells you this is on about all people, it's not. You get James 1 and 1 to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, and then the all nations, you get your Deuteronomy, will be scattered into all nations, and then you get your John 11, that he shall gather in one the children of God which was scattered abroad. So these all nations that you read of in the Bible ain't all nations. It's brothers that was in all nations, brothers that was distributed amongst all nations. So those are the ones that's going to be coming back. And that's why Christ said, that's what it said, to gather in one the children of God which was scattered abroad. Didn't say everybody. He's just going to gather the children in God out of these all nations which were scattered abroad. And that's why James 1 and 1 said, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. So the all nations is the Israelites. That's all it is. Like,
So I want to know that just to prove that Israel can be other nations.
That Israel can be other nations.
Like you can be like Poles and Romans and Jews.
All right, give me Acts. Someone get me Acts 2. Acts 2 and hold on, what do I want? Yeah, give me Acts. Yeah, give me Acts 2 and 5.
Another one comes, sir. Acts chapter 2, verse 5. And they were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews.
So it says, and they were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews. So who was at Jerusalem? Jews. Go ahead.
Devout men.
Devout men. Go ahead.
Out of every nation under heaven.
So there you go. It says Jews was out of every nation under heaven. So that's the answer to your question. Jews out of every nation under heaven. So if people wants to know who all the nation, the nation who the Bible, when the Bible's talking about scattered into all nations, it's talking about Jews. And these was ones which was coming back out of every nation. So when you read on, it will give you a list of where it was coming from: Ethiopia, Parthians, Medes. All these men wasn't natural Ethiopians or natural East Indians. They were Jews that was dwelling in Ethiopia and India. So there was Jews out of these nations. So that's what that's talking about. You can drop that. We're going to go back into the class. So lucky, but was we finished with this one? Or? Yeah, we read this one. All right, get me this one.
A half a century than Cyprian, Lacantius, in his work on the principles of true religion, laid down the forms that Christian action should take. Among the duties involved was that of burial, not of friends and relatives, but also of the poor and strangers. Like Cyprian's Roman correspondence, he calls this the greatest of duties and contrasts the Christian attitude with that of the pagans, among whom the poor and unwanted might be thrust into horrible Colio, something like that. So pits for the promiscuous burial. There was
So, so now, because Christians love everybody, they took care of burials for the poor, for the strangers. Because if you know anything about Rome, they didn't do burials; they done cremation. So that's why they also had underground burials. Why? Because Christians didn't want their loved ones cremated. They wanted them to have an honorable burial because they believed in the resurrection that you come back. Whereas Rome didn't care about all that. You're dead. Rome would just cremate. Yes, lucky. Go ahead.
there was of course also the theological reason for Christian care of the dead, i.e., the firm belief in a bodily resurrection, and theme to be elaborated by Prudentius towards the end of the 4th century in his burial hymn. Cathemirion the sixth.
You can just skip them kind of Greek sounding words if you want.
Can't. As the pagan Cassius says in the anti-Christian speech on the activists of
Menecius Felix.
AD 220, they, the Christians, curse our funeral pyres. Is it prayers? Pyres, and condemn cremation.
So now they said these Christians condemn cremation. So imagine if you're living in Rome and they're cremating and you're not doing cremation, what do you think is going to happen? They wanted to cremate people, and these Christians didn't want their people cremated. So that's kind of why they had the catacombs. So now people always say to you that prove that men in the Bible existed, and you say to them, well, prove the Roman emperors existed, because they can't prove it. You know why? Because all them Roman emperors was cremated, so they died with cremation. So show me Caesar Augustus's body. You can't show me where it is, man. But they know he existed. So when people try and tell you biblical figures don't exist, it's because really what they're saying is they don't care or believe in the Bible. Because they've never met anyone from the Roman Empire in their life, but they never question if they existed. Now, when you look at them Roman emperors, most of them was cremated. Why? Because cremation was Roman customs, whereas we didn't do cremation because we wanted honorable burials. So that's why these brothers here is burying in the catacombs and so forth. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Oh, Quran Khan. And he goes on to scoff at the Christians' eschatological expectations. Sorry, Salaki, what's that word mean, sir? Eschatological, if I could.
ESCHATOLOGICAL.
Cousin.
Meaning, I think that's lucky. Go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, the part of theology concerned with death.
So now they're laughing at these, like thinking they're coming back from the dead.
Right.
So he's saying how they believe they're coming back from the dead, whereas how Edomites live, they don't care about dying. They live like you only live once and enjoy your life, and that's it. So they laughed at what the Christians believed. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Quran Khan. Devout men buried Stephen, says the Acts of Apostles of the first martyr. And from that time onwards, they recovered bodies of martyrs where possible.
So now, what happened is Stephen was a martyr, meaning he got stoned to death. So now, after this, they started to recover more bodies of martyrs. So now, what's a martyr? A man that dies for what he believes. Go ahead.
Quran Khan. Such recoveries was allowed by the Roman law, though ill-disposed persons tried to prevent this.
So now, by Roman law states, you can take your loved one and give them a burial. So what they tried to do, some Romans tried to prevent you from burying your loved ones. So they would try to cremate a few martyrs. They would try to burn the martyrs and so forth, which was disrespectful to the Christians. Why? Because they was like, yo, this is our role models. So they wanted to take the bodies. And you will find the same thing with Christ. When Christ died, what did a man do? Went and paid for his place of burial, man. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Canada one can, sir. AD 177.
One second, Benjamin. Cremation is like a old East Indian custom. Comes from the Hindus and the Romans also done it. But with us, burial is our thing, whereas cremation is seen as disrespectful. So we usually bury our loved ones, just wrap them up, put them in the ground, and that's it. We would still bury them the same way. So okay, go ahead.
So the bury will contain the disease.
Yeah. So that's why the Romans. Speaking of that, that's why the Romans used to make sure. That's why when you look at the catacombs, this is why none of the catacombs was inside the city, because the Romans understood disease spreads. So what they used to do, they used to have a long road, and what you'll find is most catacombs is on the road and not in the city of Rome itself, because they was like, nah, we can't have that disease. So there was a law that you can't bury inside the city. You had to bury your loved ones on a street outside the city. So you'll find that all the Roman burials, the catacombs, is usually on the highway somewhere. So lucky. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Canada and cancer. AD 177 took steps to counter it by burning the bodies of the martyrs.
So now the Romans started to burn the bodies of the martyrs. So if there was some martyrs that whose graves you're looking for, you probably won't find them. Why? Because the Romans would burn their bodies in the early stages. So now if you burn someone's body, it's like they don't exist no more, man, because you can't find no grave site of theirs. All you find is like a urn, and they tell you this is their ashes. So like, you go ahead.
And throwing the ashes into the river Rhone.
And that's what they would do. They would burn the martyrs' bodies and throw the ashes into the river. Go ahead.
Similarly, in AD 303, the bodies of imperial servants who were martyrs were exhumed and thrown into the sea.
And who was martyrs? They would exhume their bodies and throw their bodies into the sea. So for half of you people saying, why can't we find biblical figures, bodies and martyrs and early Christians and so forth? Why can't we find their bodies? The reason why is because Romans would exhume their bodies and throw them into the sea, man. Now, if you want to find some of the martyrs, you would have to go in the sea and look. That's where you would have to go. So now, if you're living in the next man's land, he can exhume your body whenever he wants. So at this stage, this is when the Romans was pagans and hated Christians before they converted to Christianity. They would exhume bodies of the martyrs and throw their bodies in the sea. That's lucky. Go ahead.
So that's it, sir.
Go ahead.
If I may, in a second, sir, if I could I get a breakdown on Revelations 12:4, please? When you're ready.
No, let me finish with this slide and then I'll give you one.
Yeah, go on. Appreciate it.
Lest any regarding them as actually gods should worship them as they lay in their tombs.
So now, because people looked up to these martyrs so much, they would exhume their body and throw them into the sea. Why? Because they didn't want you worshipping the martyrs as gods and so forth. Go ahead.
Later still,
worshipped as gods. Now they didn't want you to do this to the martyrs, so the Romans exhumed their bodies and threw them in the sea. Go ahead.
Later still, at Alexandria in 361, when George, the city's introducing bishop, and others were lynched by a mob, the populace burnt their bodies and flung the ashes into the sea.
And this is what happened to a lot of your martyrs. So when when you're reading Revelations where it says these men stood stiffly for the word of God, and they're asking avenge us in the book of Revelations, that's these brothers right here who was burnt and so forth. These brothers that was burnt for what they believed. These brothers that was hung and burnt and thrown in the sea. Go ahead.
Lest a martyr shrine should be raised over them.
And they didn't want a martyr shrine. So what's a martyr shrine? A shrine is like you having loads of pictures of someone. That's what a shrine is. So they didn't want a martyr shrine of you having Peter everywhere. So lucky, go ahead.
Ignatius of Antioch, on his way to martyrdom in Rome about AD 115, expresses the hope that his body may be destroyed by the beast, so that he would not be a trouble to anyone.
Go ahead.
Finally, the apostate Emperor Julian in 362, in his efforts to reform paganism, mentioned various reasons for the success and popularity of Christianity. Among these is their care for their graves of the dead.
So now these Christians, they took care of their graves. And that's why the catacombs are so decorated with nice imagery, stairs and everything's clean, and it's built just right because they took care of their graves. They would go visit their loved ones every so often. Go ahead. Afterwards, there became so much people buried in catacombs that to work in the catacombs became a job. To dig the catacombs became a job. At first, it would just be you digging to bury your family members. You see, like now, how you can't dig it yourself. You have to pay someone. It's kind of like how it became back then. Go ahead.
Initially, when Christians were few, the duty of sepulture must have been carried out by individuals
So
or
now
by
the
their
funeral
servants.
service and digging was carried out by individuals in the beginning, but once Christianity grew and grew and grew, they had to start paying people to do the work. Go ahead.
In the cemeteries used by the pagans, as was done in the case of Saint Peter and Saint Paul. Polycarp at Smyrna
Slaki,
about
go ahead.
Polycarp at Smyrna about AD 156, and Justin
Go
and
ahead.
his companions at Rome
All
about
the carpenters, these is early Christians. These is like what they call early church fathers. Go ahead.
AD 165 were laid where it was fitting or in a convenient place. We may be sure that such burials took place in pagan cemeteries, though we find that Cyprian blamed a lapsed Spanish bishop for belonging to a pagan burial club and allowing the funeral rites of members of his family to take place in such surroundings. Later on, in the 4th century, Hilary of Poitiers and the Council of Laodicea could warn Christians against burial with the pagans
So
and the
in the beginning, they just
frequenting.
used to bury anywhere. The Christians and the pagans would be buried next to each other. Go ahead. It's kind of like now, if you look at a cemetery, not everyone in the cemetery is Christian. I think the only people that have their own cemetery is what the Muslims. I believe.
Conscious cemetery,
Mm.
is it Jewish cemetery?
So usually you're in the cemetery with everyone. If you look at Hamsworth Cemetery, you're in there with drug dealers, you're in there with Christians, you're in there with Baptists. You're all buried side by side. That's how they would do it in the early stages before afterwards. They would just have Christian burial places. It's lucky, go ahead. So back then, how it would work is your family would have a plot, and you would all be buried on your family plot. So your family would have land, and all the family would be buried there. Like usually, it would be rare for a stranger to be buried with you. Whereas nowadays, we're just buried in one big cemetery where everyone's in there. But back then, when we had money and land, your family would just be all buried together. So what you have is Abraham would be buried with his rib and his kids and so forth, and so forth.
If I may, sir,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
in Housden, actually just on the way to Housden, there's a Jewish cemetery. I don't know if Benjamin know where it is, opposite the red bus station. There's a Jewish only burial ground. No one else is buried there. Just the Ashkenazi Jewish.
And if you told them, yo, you're Jewish, I guarantee you, they'll still never let you be buried there.
Right.
Yeah, it don't matter how Jewish you tell them you are, they'll never let you be buried there. So which shows that what people don't even want others buried with them. That's lucky. Go ahead, Benjamin. And have that you wanted as well, because after I'm gonna get it, I'll get it for you.
Could warn Christians against burial with the pagans and the frequenting of pagan cemeteries. But in earlier times, such as a prohibition was hardly possible, and we shall see examples of pagan and Christian burials side by side. When Christian cemeteries began to be constructed, for example, round Rome, on the properties of prominent Christians, or on the ground given by wealthy families, not themselves Christians, to their dependents.
So now sometimes wealthy families they would give you money to go bury your loved ones. They could be pagans, but they'll give you the money. So if you get buried there, guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna be buried with people that don't believe the same thing as you. So this was just a burial ground until later on they changed it all up. Go ahead.
The work of the burial would probably be undertaken by the Christian members of these households. Then, as the number of Christians increased, and the presence of tombs of martyrs rendered a certain cemeteries popular, the task of burial became Salakia, sir.
Yeah, basically, I think the next page it lets you know the task of burial became. Hold on one sec. Let me quickly get Hakian's question. Go ahead, Hakian.
Revelations 12, verse 4.
Go ahead.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven.
Give me one verse up.
Verse 3. Revelations 12, 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven.
Go ahead.
And behold, a great dragon having 7 heads.
So the dragon is what? The Roman Empire and their military might and these European nations. That's who the dragon is. 7 heads is his seven kingdoms and his power structure and so forth.
Right.
That's the 7 heads of this dragon. Go ahead.
Right. And 7 crowns upon his head.
And 7 kingdoms. Go ahead.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven.
And now, who's those stars of heaven? The Israelites. So now he took us down. So once they took us down and conquered us and threw us in slavery, that's what that's talking about. So once he took down Benjamin, Judah, and Levi, that's the third of the stars he took down.
Right. Is that when we was in rulership in the Dark Ages?
No. This is before.
Before that. Okay.
Before that.
Right. Okay. So okay.
So this is before he had that wound on his head. So okay, go ahead.
Right. Okay. So the tail, basically, it's an analogy for saying, you know, they conquered us, basically.
Yes, that's for him conquering us and bringing us down.
Right. Okay. Forward. And the next bit is and did cast them to the earth.
So now heaven is rulership. Heaven is being on top, and us being cast down from heaven to the earth is talking about us ending up in slavery at the bottom. So just think the earth is been lower than the heavens.
Right.
So we was in the heavens, meaning ruling, and then we was cast down to the earth.
Right.
By who? The same white man, these Europeans.
Right.
And this is why we're on the earth right now, meaning the earth symbolizes a lower state.
Right. Okay. That's what
to go from heaven to the earth is to go to a lower state. And he cast us down. So that's what that's talking about.
The water. That was heavy. Thanks for that. And the dragon stood before the woman.
And the woman is Israel.
So when it says the dragon stood in before Israel, what does that mean? That part. So
when it says the dragon stood before the woman, this is talking about the oppressor over us, but it's manifold. So what you'll see is also when Christ was born, the dragon stood over him and was trying to kill him as soon as he came out.
Right. So when it says
when you read in when you read in Mark or whatever, you got it. Yeah, I was gonna get the woman for you right now. Go ahead.
Jeremiah 6:2. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman.
So now Israel is the woman. So now even when you go to Genesis, when it says when it says I shall put enmity against his seed and her seed, the hair is all about Israel. The woman is Israel.
Right.
Because the Lord is like a husbandman, and Israel is like who he takes care of. So that's what he calls Israel, his wife who he's in a covenant with.
Can't fully understand that part, sir. It's just the bit where it says, and the dragon stood before the woman. So like I didn't get that last bit.
Read that part and then keep reading and it will explain. So like
can't. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered.
And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered. Can I read the next part?
Can I ask you something quickly?
Go ahead.
When it said ready to be delivered, is that ready to be delivered from our low state?
Look, I'll read it one more time.
Can't. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered.
And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered. And then if you read the next verse, it gives you the whole context. I believe it's in the next verse.
For to devour her child as soon as it was born.
Or to what?
Devour her child as soon as it was born.
Or to devour her child as soon as it was born. And who specifically, who did this dragon try to devour?
Yahushai.
There you go. So they tried to devour Christ as soon as he was born. Read on.
Oh, is that with Nebuchadnezzar?
No,
Sorry.
that's with Herod when Christ had to flee
Herod.
to Egypt.
That's
when
right.
Christ had to
Herod.
flee to Egypt.
Yeah, Herod. That's right.
Was
Yeah.
why the dragon stood to devour a child as soon as it was born.
Right. That's right. Okay. Right. Okay. So yeah. So they're referring to the dragon as the white man there, right?
Yeah.
Not Satan, the white man. Okay, calm. Yeah, that's it, you know, sir. The water.
Right,
Appreciate
right.
that.
Most and
Yeah.
Christ.
The water for that.
So
Appreciate
that's
Great.
who the dragon is.
Great breakdown. I knew the dragon. I knew I knew what the stars of heaven was. I just tried to understand the devour her child as soon as it was born, and then I kind of got it after you broke it down for me. The water. Appreciate it, sir.
And Christ. So lucky someone get me. Wait, we read this already, right? Hold on, wait a minute. Let me see if we read this one. Yeah, go ahead. Give me this one from. Actually, go ahead. Give me this one. Actually, go ahead.
Another one can't, sir. It is known that in antiquity, Rome had no communal cemeteries as it does now.
Rome had. So now let's see who's paying attention. Why did Rome have no communal cemeteries?
Because they didn't want their they didn't want the bodies buried. They wanted them cremated.
Yes. So there's no point of them having cemeteries if they don't believe in burying. They believe in cremation.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's some that used to bury their loved ones, but for the most part, they would cremate them. So lucky, go ahead.
The law forbade burial.
So now this is why, with these Roman emperors, a lot of them was cremated. I believe Caesar Augustus was cremated, right? If I remember, and most of them Roman emperors was cremated. So now when someone says to you, prove that the men in the Bible existed, you say to him, prove to me Caesar Augustus existed. Say, prove to me the Roman Empire existed, because when I go to find Caesar Augustus's body, I can't find it. I don't know if he really got cremated. How do I know they didn't make up Caesar Augustus? Just play stupid with them. Say, how do I know they didn't make up Caesar Augustus if they're going to tell you the apostles in them didn't exist? You just say to them, well, the Roman Empire didn't exist either, because the same way you're looking for for bodies of Bible monarchs or whatever, show me the bodies of the Roman emperors, man. And they can't show it to you because why? They used to cremate them if they existed. So, okay, that's what you say to them. If they existed, go ahead.
Salakia, sir. Two can play that game.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. So you can play that game, man. You're telling me the men in the Bible didn't exist? Well, neither did Caesar Augustus and them. If you're going to show me a little churn and tell me this is his ashes, how do I know? Have we DNA tested it? And what would we DNA test it against, man? Like, what I would take those ashes and DNA test it against what? It makes no sense, man. Don't listen to these idiots that tell you about DNA testing. In order to DNA test something, you need something to DNA test it against. What are you going to do? DNA testing. I could show you something and say, yo, this is Paul, and give you DNA. How can you prove to me it's not Paul? Have you got his parents where you can test their DNA? No, you don't. No, you don't. DNA testing's only been around since what? The early 1900s, late 1800s, I believe, early 1900s. So don't give me none of that nonsense, man. If we're gonna speak facts, especially these twats that believe in Egypt. Lucky, go ahead.
Yeah, I heard man say because the white Jews who DNA testing proves that they're the Jews. I'm like, well, who you test it against? Like,
Exactly.
Do you have an old Jew? Like, to prove that child's mine, you gotta test the child's DNA with mine.
Exactly.
So who you test it against? Like, I've got Moses.
Exactly.
Like, I know you test it against.
Exactly. You're testing it against another Jewish man that's also not really a Jew. Like, you'd have to go back to the 5th century, 6th century, and go all the way, get DNA from then, and you're not gonna get it, man, because most of those graves was desecrated. And I show you this before we get to the end of the class. Lucky, go ahead.
The law forbade burial or cremation within the confines of the pomerium, that is, within the inhabited area.
Now, in Rome, they didn't allow you to cremate in the city because they didn't want diseases and stuff. So what? You had to go out the city and do your cremation. So out the city you would go, and then that's why all the catacombs is on the side of the road somewhere. So like, you go ahead.
Salakia, the perimeter of which did not always coincide with the city walls. The
Go ahead.
laws of the seventh table categorically stated, "You shall not bury your or burn a corpse in the city."
So now this is Roman law that you can't bury or burn a corpse in the city. Go ahead.
Outside the pomerium, one could build a tomb where one liked, as long as one could afford the costs.
So now they could build a tomb wherever they liked. So that's why they began to build catacombs. Now they began to bury under the ground in catacombs. Why? Because when there was burying above the ground, people's destroying their burial places. People's destroying their cemeteries. So because people's destroying their cemeteries, they said, you know what? Let's go dig catacombs and bury under the ground. That way people won't know that they're there and people won't destroy them. Go ahead.
Generally, the Romans chose a place of burial along one of the roads leading out of the city.
Go ahead.
There were also burial places belonging to particular categories of people or associations, such as the.
I'm gonna skip this one. Let me skip that one for time's sake. Hold on, I'm gonna have to try skip a ton of slides. Yeah, go ahead.
Can't.
Give me from the second paragraph.
Can't, sir. Why did Christians dig the catacombs?
So now it's gonna let you know why they dig the catacombs. Go ahead.
For various reasons. First of all, they rejected the custom of cremation,
So that's
and
why
preferred
they didn't like cremation. So in order to bury their loved ones freely, they dug catacombs. Go ahead.
and preferred inhumation, just as Christ was buried. Further, Christ's exhortation to care for the poor.
Give me the next paragraph with the problem. Go ahead.
The problem of space also played a part in the development of the catacombs.
So space also played a part. There's running out of space in them cemeteries. So then they said, you know what? We need to bury it elsewhere. So they dug underground, and that's how they came up with the catacombs. Go ahead.
The areas above ground owned by the Christians in the 2nd and 3rd centuries were not extensive. Had they used only the open-air cemeteries, the burial space available would have quickly been exhausted. Salakia, sir.
No, sir.
In antiquity, a tomb was sacred and inviolable, even after years. No other person could be buried in the same grave occupied by another. Also, so the choice of excavation solved the problem, allowing exploitation of space underground.
So that's why they built the catacombs. So lucky, get me this one.
There were other reasons for this choice. Above all, the sense of community. The early Christians wished to be together, even in the sleep of death. Furthermore, such out of the way areas favored community prayer and the use of symbols and other manifestations of their faith. The depth of excavations also gave greater security for the tombs.
So now they wanted greater security for the graves. So that's why they created the catacombs underground. Why? They wanted greater security for the graves. Go ahead.
Kadawan Khan, particularly in times of persecution.
So now there was a time when the Christians was being persecuted. So what would happen to their graves? Their graves would be desecrated and destroyed. Go ahead.
When surface graves were more exposed to vandalism and violation.
So now surface graves is the cemeteries that you see today. They was being vandalized. So what happened? They begin to bury their loved ones underground. Go ahead.
Kadawan Khan, the economic factor should not be underestimated. This kind of burial was more economical and suited a church whose number of believers grew continually, especially among the very poor
So now this was a cheaper way and a better way. Go ahead.
Why was the Roman government generally open and tolerant towards the other religions?
So
So
now this is asking why was the Romans more tolerable to other religions but not tolerable to these brothers that followed Christ? Go ahead.
so in transigent. Sorry, like what does that word mean there, sir? So in
Intransigent. So like you pulled me up intransigent. I got no meaning what that means. Yeah. It's intransigent.
transigent.
We're gonna pull it up now.
What?
Intransigent, unwilling or refusing to change one's reviews
Unwilling or refusing to change one's reviews.
Right, understood.
or to agree about something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on. So intransigent at times towards Christianity. Juridical
Juridical.
Salakia. Juridical pretext for persecution were many. Treason, sacrilege, impiety, hatred.
So now the Romans hated the followers of Christ. They hated them so much, and it was tolerable to other religions, but it wasn't tolerable to these brothers right here. These brothers and sisters. Go ahead.
Are these Salakia, sir? Are these actual disciples called Christians at that time?
So back then, these brothers would have been way more righteous than the Christians you see today. These would have been the ones who was around just after the time of the disciples and so forth. So these would be like the early Christians, the ones that now some of them later on you would have find that they incorporated a lot of paganism into what they was doing.
Right.
But in the early stages, they would have been following what was laid down and so forth. Now some of them would have, some of them wouldn't have.
Right. So you could basically say there were Israelites following the law, kind of thing.
You can't really say it was following the law because it doesn't say that, but you could say that they had some concept of believing in Christ. You could say these ones here that refused to bend and change sounds like they was doing the right thing.
Right. And there's no.
But you can't say for all of them because we don't know what they did in their spare time.
Can't. And there's no proof to say that they was not following.
And also it says that a lot of them used to go visit their loved ones on Sunday and so forth. So some of the mainstream Christianity probably would have seeped into a lot of them.
Right.
There was amongst the Romans. So who's to say they weren't half and half? So okay.
Can't.
Go ahead.
Juridical pretext for the persecution were many. Treason, sacrilege, impiety, hatred of the human race, unlawful association considered dangerous to the state, and disloyalty.
Give me the part where it says the real motive.
The real motive was much simpler. Other religions stopped to compromise and adapt.
So now that's why they respected the other religions a bit more because they compromised. Whereas these brothers here that was following Christ, they weren't compromising, man. So then that's why the Romans couldn't stand them. Same way the Romans couldn't stand the brothers in the book of the Maccabees. Same way they couldn't stand us in Purim. Why? Because they just hate our laws and our customs.
Right.
Which lets you know, man, those records are true because what it says in those records,
Right.
you see the same thing played out in history.
Right.
So what we're reading right now, the same thing is being played out in history that they couldn't stand what the brothers was doing and the sisters. Lucky go ahead.
And if I may, sir, us in the ISUPK, we don't move. And we keep these laws, statutes, and they hate us. Look at the crowd that was against us in Birmingham. You know, you lot done a grand job keeping form and order and everything, and we weren't even saying nothing about them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we're talking about them. So like,
exactly.
So that proves that
they hate us, and it's the same way they hated them.
Mm-hmm.
Which lets you know, man, the same thing that their persecution was like our persecution right now, man.
Right.
Lucky, get me this one there to skip that slide. I'm going to start skipping some slides for time's sake because there's some images I have to get to as well. So Lucky, go ahead.
Do you want to start at the importance of the catacombs, or
give me Give me the. Hold on. Yeah. Go ahead. Give me from the importance of the catacombs.
Khan. The importance of the catacombs may be summed up in the words of D. Rossi Illustratius pupil, Orazio Marucci. The catacombs can be regarded as the cradle of Christianity, and
The catacombs can be regarded as the cradle of Christianity. So when we do go into the catacombs, basically they're saying this is like the start of Christianity, the catacombs. This is the beginning of Christianity. So now when we go to the catacombs, we're going to show you what was found in the catacombs. So Lucky, go ahead.
Khan, and the archives of the primitive church.
And the archives of the church. So now we're going to see what was the archives of the church, which they were saying is the main thing in Christianity. Go ahead.
Okay, Khan. Their paintings, sculptures, and inscriptions provide the most valuable material.
Like it says, the paintings provides the most valuable. Go ahead.
Material. For illustrating.
And for illustrating, so we're going to see what these brothers in the catacombs was drawing.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see what they was drawing before the Renaissance. Listen, what these brothers was drawing in these catacombs. I'm going to show you how early these drawings was. It predates the Byzantine Empire, man. This goes back to the time of the early church fathers. So who would have known what the men of God looked like better than them? They would have known, man, because they're closer to that time. So eventually we're going to go into some images, man, of what was in them. Of what was in the catacombs. So, Lucky, go ahead.
And so, Lucky, sir, if I may, even when Putin opened up the oldest vault, they were surprised to see black everywhere.
Exactly.
Black everywhere. So
you tell Putin we're going into something older than that, man.
Oh, okay.
You tell Putin we should be showing older pictures than that.
Okay.
Tell him we go in a few centuries before that, man.
All right.
We also gonna get the dates and when they draw these pictures.
Okay.
So nobody can't say we're lying. So Lucky, go ahead.
Yeah. What book is this other one?
This one is. I'm using 3 different books, but I can't remember. I think this one is Catacombs. It's just called Catacombs. I give you the author.
Oh, I'll get it off you later. Is it online? Can I get it online?
Yeah, you should be able to.
All right then. Can't do.
Peter London, sir, may I comment, please? As an Edomite, I have seen the catacombs in Rome and Naples, and the oldest images of Yahushua and Adam and Eve are of 12 tribes. This is the whole. Listen, even give Peter a hand. Even Peter, an Edomite knows, man. Listen, man. Even Peter, an Edomite knows the Jews are black. Listen, man, Peter, I need you to make a video saying that the Jews are black, man. I need you to make a video saying that you've been to the catacombs. I need a compilation. Make a video. I need a compilation of Edomites making a video saying the Jews are black. Listen,
That's
Peter,
right.
you do that video and send that video to me.
That's right. That's heavy.
And give me a compilation with all the footage you got saying that the Jews are black.
That's right. And so, like you said,
go ahead.
For him obeying what you're telling him to do, the Lord will do what for him?
Listen, tell Peter, I just want my compilation first. Before we start talking about what the Lord's going to do for him, I want my compilation first. Let me get that compilation first.
All right.
I ain't put the cart before the horse. I put the cart before the horse before.
All right.
And it never worked out for Mr. Lucky.
All right. I hear you. Peter, just bring the things, man. Just bring the things in, and we're good.
Get me this one.
Madam, can you get this one for me?
Canada one count, sir. In most cases, they took the name of the donor of the land, and so we have the catacombs.
This is letting you know how the catacombs got its name. How catacombs got its name. Go ahead. Actually, you know what? For time's sake, I'll skip this one. I'll just tell you how catacombs got their name is the most famous man that was buried in there. It would be called Catacombs of whatever the person's name was, or it would be named after a place or something like that. Go ahead.
They grew up from the second half of the 3rd century at the site where Basilica of Saint Sebastian now stands on the Via Appia Antica, a center of veneration of the apostles Peter and Paul. Now the bodies of the 2 apostles had long been in their tombs.
Go ahead.
The one on the Vatican Hill, the
So
other
now,
on the
so now,
road of Ostia.
according to history, this is where Peter and Paul's bodies was buried. So according to history, people saying, where's the bodies of the apostles? Well, according to history, this is where their bodies was buried. One was on Vatican Hill, the other on the road. I believe Peter's was Vatican Hill, but they took these, apparently they took them out of their burial places and kept moving them. We're going to get into that also. So people that say, where's the bodies of the apostles? According to history, Peter's body, they got his body in Rome somewhere, and they got Paul's on the road somewhere, but they moved them out of their tombs a few times. And also, they got relics of Peter and they have relics of Paul. So if they've got relics of Peter and relics of Paul, what does that mean? That means that Peter and Paul existed, young man. That's what that means. For you
That's right.
people trying to say that they didn't exist, how come people that lived before you, that knew way more than you did, was closer to the time than you are, have relics of Peter and have relics of Paul? Why did Roman emperors write to other emperors saying, give me the body of Paul, if they didn't exist? So like you read on, give me this.
Some think that in 258, the persecution under Valerian, the bodies of the apostles were moved for reasons of safety
So now they say the bodies of the apostles were moved for safety. Go ahead.
from the pagan cemeteries of the Vatican and the Via Ostensis, and
ahead.
that they were taken back to their original tombs when permanent peace came in the early 4th century.
So now they said they removed their bodies and then took them back to their first burial tombs. Go ahead.
That a festival of the apostles began at Catacombs.
So now they would do these venerations and start doing these festivals of saints and whatnot. So like you go ahead.
By the 6th century, one account of the institution of the celebration was that disciples from the east, whence the apostles had originally come, stole their bodies after execution.
So
but
now
were-
they say they stole some of the apostles' bodies after execution. Now they're not proving that as facts. They're saying they had to stole their bodies, but because of a storm, they couldn't take their bodies far, so they just left them. Go ahead.
but were able to carry them only as far as the site ad Catacombs, where a violent thunderstorm so discomfited the thieves that
Because
they
what happens if a man's a martyr, if a man's a great man, guess what happens? People steal their bodies. That's why when certain people die, they can't bury them in a public place because people steal their bodies, man. Hold on, let me get this one. Yeah, get me. Hold on, this is what I want. Yeah, go ahead, get me this one. I'm trying to skip some of these for time's sake.
It is possible that around the middle of the 3rd century, veneration of the apostles, owing to the growing number of the Christians, had become impossible in the crowded areas of their original tombs.
Go ahead.
The excavations under Saint Peter's aptly reveal the congested surroundings of the apostolic edicula
Yeah, go ahead.
in the Vatican cemetery. The newly constructed shrine at Catacombs may have possessed relics attributed to the apostles.
Oh, so it may have possessed relics. It may have possessed relics attributed to the apostles. Now, a relic is something that belongs to someone. So a relics could be someone's jewelry, could even be their body, just a part of them. So now, if they didn't exist, why are they talking about relics which belong to the apostles? A man that don't exist doesn't have relics because he don't exist. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Just as happened at Milan in the time of Ambrose, bishop in AD 374 to 97.
Rocco Wam said that. So Lucky, grave robbing entire bodies. Listen, man, they would go dig up the whole bodies, and because they know if they get those bodies, they know Christians would give them a ton of money for it. So they would dig up them bodies and try and take them bodies, and that's why most these burial places they keep them in the Vatican where no one's got access to it. Because if they said, "Yo, Peter's buried in New York," everyone's gonna go take that body, man. So yeah, they can't even leave them out like that. That's Lucky. Go ahead.
where in the Basilica of the Apostles at Milan, according to Ambrose, biographer, Paulinius, relics of St. Peter and St. Paul had recently.
So why have they got relics of Peter and relics of Paul? Why? Because Peter and Paul existed, man.
That's right.
All of you wannabe scholars, you Egyptians talking about they didn't exist, you just haven't run into the right person yet, man.
That's right.
You ain't run into the right person yet, man. You be dealing with Christians. Come and deal with us about who existed and who didn't exist, man. You're gonna find out. So lucky, get me this one. And also, most of the bodies of martyrs, you can't find them for this reason right here. Give me this one.
It is not clear how much damage was done to the cemeteries when Rome was captured by the barbarians in AD 410.
So now Rome was captured by the barbarians. So this is around the time when once Rome began to fall, the barbarians, who was what? The brothers that was coming from across the sea that was into paganism and weren't Christians, they started destroying all the Christian stuff because they went into Christianity. Go ahead.
And 454, but subsequent invasions brought widespread destruction. In 537 to 8, churches and bodies of holy martyrs were desecrated by the Goths.
And this is why you can't find most martyrs. Why? Because most of these martyrs, their bodies was desecrated, man. Their bodies was desecrated by the Goths. So that's why you can't find most martyrs. This is why if someone says to you, oh, well, find me a martyr of one of the early church fathers or whatever, most of their bodies won't be found. Why? Because once Rome fell, their bodies was desecrated, man, in like a disrespectful thing. They wanted to get rid of the body, so they desecrated it. So lucky, go ahead.
It's lucky the Goths and the barbarians are the same people, right?
Yeah, it's just people from overseas. Basically, a barbarian was what people who was someone who was a non-Christian. So what would happen is people would say the barbarians speak like ba 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 ba. So that's why they call them barbarian.
Right, and also, so like it's these barbarians were the Israelites, right?
You can't say every barbarian is an Israelite because a barbarian was like an offensive term to someone that wasn't a Christian.
Okay, so do we have any evidence that because I always thought and was told that Rome was overthrown by black people.
Yes, but
from the inside.
So now this is how you gotta look at it. These barbarians came from overseas. So what? So a better way to say it would be to say the Anglo-Saxons, the Normans or the brothers, the brothers that came from France.
Right.
So they had a part in bringing down the Roman Empire. So you want to say it like that, so you're specific. Because if you just say the barbarians, nowadays a barbarian is anyone that goes against whatever they want.
The Roman kind of structure of things, yeah.
So a barbarian, a barbarian is like the term a pirate, the term a Viking. It could be anyone. So you don't want to say barbarian because a barbarian could fit 10 different categories.
Right. Okay.
So that's why I said, you want to be very specific when. So you could say the Anglo-Saxons, you could say the Danes, any of them black brothers that came and was fighting against Rome.
Right. So the barbarian basically is, like you said, rightly said, so, but it's a blanket kind of statement,
yes,
or a blanket kind of comment, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got you too.
That's why you kind of want to be specific, because then Edomite that thinks he's a barbarian or whatever will think you're talking about him. Salakia, get me this one here.
By sources, we mean the ancient historical and
hold on, go ahead.
Liturgical documents which offer precious evidence about the catacombs.
All right, so this right here, this is letting you know that the first works in the catacombs, define evidence of it from the 3rd century. Let me skip that one for time's sake. Go ahead.
The tombs of martyrs became the key visiting point for pilgrims.
So now, the tombs became a visiting point for pilgrims, meaning people that want to make pilgrimage to these places, come out and see these places. Go ahead.
And so it became necessary to use guidebooks called itineraries, most of which were the work of priests from France and Germany. The most important of them is the Nautica, Oh,
Just skip those parts and just give me the.
Khan. Okay, come on, Khan. Dating from the first half of the 7th century. It contains a list of catacombs and gives the names of all the martyrs and saints buried.
So now there's a book where you can get the list of all the martyrs and saints. Now it's not going to be all of them because most of the graves was desecrated. But how did people that was desecrating the graves know who was martyrs? Why? Because on their grave they would write martyr. So that's how you would know this is a martyr. And then to be disrespectful, you would destroy their grave or their catacomb. Let me get the next one. Yeah, go ahead. It tells you that right here. Give me this from. Yeah, give me this from the custom.
Benjamin, you got this one.
Canada on cancer.
From the custom.
Very few sepulchral
Now, give me
inscriptions.
from the bottom where it says the custom, because well, I'm trying to skip some slides for time's sake.
The custom of inscribing on Slovakia, the custom of inscribing the honorific title martyr on the sepulchral slab goes back to 258, as is clear from the inscription of Felicissimus and
So now that's how they would know who was a martyr, because the family members would put martyr on the grave. You see, like how you would put your loved one's name on their gravestone. They would do that with the martyr. Hold on, let me see this one. All right, let me skip this for time. I'm gonna have to skip a lot of slides. Give me this one. Go ahead.
it was under Paul the First, 757 to 67. The transference on a large scale followed the Lombard invasion of 756, when the invaders did great damage to cemeteries.
Oh, now this is when the invaders again damaged the cemeteries. Let me skip that one. They damaged the cemeteries and their graves. Hold on, let me see if I want this one. Give me this one.
Khan. Starting from the relics, sir.
It's not from the relics.
The relics of various martyrs, even some of the most illustrious ones, were, however, destined to find their resting place far from Rome.
So now a lot of the relics, they found their resting place far from Rome, meaning what? Once Christianity began to spread, people started to steal relics and take relics back to their own cities. Go ahead.
The rapid spread of Christianity in countries north of the Alps led to an almost insatiable desire for relics to enhance the popularity of recently founded churches.
So imagine if you have a church and you say, in this church, I have the cloth of Jesus. Everyone would come to your church. So they wanted all the relics they could get to boost to their church. Go ahead.
Rome had become a center for pilgrimage, but the multitudes who could not visit Rome desired to have their own country's relics of the saints of earlier centuries. Rome was the great storehouse of relics.
So now this is how you know these people existed, man, because Rome was the great storehouse of relics, of biblical relics. And where do you find all the biblical relics today? In the Vatican, man. All of them are there, man. You'll be surprised how much of our things they got in that Vatican. Go ahead.
If emperors sought these, the demand was hard to refuse. But sometimes the Romans...
When emperors wanted the relics, it was hard to refuse to give it to the emperors. Go ahead.
But sometimes the Romans resisted the spoliation of martyrs' tombs.
So sometimes they didn't want you to, ruin a martyr's tomb. Give me this one.
Gregory the Great resisted a request from the Empress.
Gregory the Great resisted a request, meaning this empress, she wanted something. Go ahead.
Resisted a request from the Empress Constantina for relics of St. Paul, his head or some other parts of his body.
Hold on. Wait. And people say that Paul didn't exist. People say that Paul didn't exist. If Paul didn't exist, why is this woman asking for relics of Paul's head or a part of his body? Which means it obviously existed, man. She wanted a relics of Paul's head or part of Paul's body. Go ahead.
So, like, yes, sir. I would say if Paul didn't exist, then she didn't exist.
Exactly. Because she asked, she said, imagine this is an empress. Obviously, she's going to be privy to all history. And this is closer to the time. And she wanted Paul's head or Paul's body so she could put it in her church. So when people ask you, prove that any of these men existed, you just say, well, why did this woman want Paul's head or his body? So, okay, go ahead.
For a church in the palace at Constantinople. The Pope replied that it was not a Roman custom to touch any part of a saint's body.
He said, yo, I can't give you Paul's body, man. He's a saint. I can't give you a part of his body. Let me see what this is. Yeah, go ahead.
But it was in 1578
Yeah, go ahead.
that lively interest was aroused when diggers of Pozzolona lighted on a catacomb
So
on
now,
the
after the 5th or 6th century, catacombs went quiet until later on, until they started finding them in like the 1500s again. Go ahead. Hold on. Let me see if I can skip this. Hold on. Yeah, keep reading. Let me see if I can.
Salakia, lighted on a catacomb on the Via Salaria Nova, Baranois.
I'm going to skip that one for time's sake. Get me. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see if I need this one. Yeah, get me this one.
Among all the cemeteries of the Church of Rome, that Calixtus on Appian Way is the most famous and the best remembered. The Rossi. The history of the catacombs of Saint Calixtus
So there's the next catacomb, St. Calixtus. Go ahead.
is the part of the general history of the Christian catacombs of Rome, already looked at in the first chapter as the official cemetery of the church.
So now the catacomb was the official cemetery of the church. Go ahead.
It developed considerably in the 3rd and 4th centuries. It was among the most visited from the 5th to the 9th centuries.
Go ahead.
Then came the translations of the relics of the martyrs and saints inside the city walls. Throughout the late Middle Ages, it was completely abandoned.
Now the catacombs was completely abandoned. So over time, everybody forgot about the catacombs. Everybody forgot about these catacombs because it was completely abandoned. Go ahead, Happy, and get me Jeremiah chapter 16 and verse 19. But go ahead, Benjamin.
Come on. Jeremiah, what's it like, is it?
Verse 16 and verse 19.
Come on.
But keep reading that for me, Benjamin.
So that no one knew exactly where it was.
So now nobody knew where these catacombs was because it disappeared. Hold on, let me skip this one. Yeah, go ahead.
At the time, the catacombs of Saint Calixtus was became
Hold on,
confused.
wait, let me see what I want. Bear with me. Hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. Give me. Yeah, give me from the bottom one. Also for Saint Calixtus.
Also for Saint Calixtus, there followed centuries of darkness, during which this continual opening of the loculi caused irreparable damage. Finally,
you see how I said the catacombs was you see how I said the catacombs disappeared. So imagine the catacombs disappeared and nobody knew where to find them. And one time there was a landslide and the earth moved, man. So there was a landslide and then someone looked down the hole and they saw, oh, there's something down that hole. Imagine living your life as a whole Christian your whole life and there's a landslide and life's good because you're a Christian and Jesus is white and everything's going great. And there's a landslide and the earth opens up and you go downstairs down that landslide to take a look and you walk through this place and you see a black Jesus, man. Everybody's black. Listen, man, you should turn around, read that scripture that you're holding from me, Hakayan.
Jeremiah 16 verse 19. O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction.
Wait, are you in Jeremiah 16 and 19? Nah, give me the one where it says our fathers inherited lies.
Yeah, that is the one.
Oh, it's that one. Ask Lucky, go ahead.
And my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto me from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies.
Your fathers have inherited lies, man. Because if you look at this picture right here, where I'm moving the cursor, look at this black man right here on the wall of the catacombs. Imagine Jesus is white and you walk in the catacombs and you see this, man. You walk in the catacombs and you see black men all on the walls of the catacombs, man. And this is from the 3rd century. Let's keep going. It's lucky. Give me this one, Banyamin.
Cancer. The catacomb paintings perpetuate, celebrate, confirm the anonymous fate of those ages and
They
people.
said in this book, it says the pictures confirm the anonymous faith for those ages. So if they was painting the people black, what color was the people, man? Black.
That's right.
And
Pictures.
also, Salakia, sir.
Go ahead.
And also, we know the people at that time was black anyway.
And listen, now we know it with proof. So imagine if the Lord caused the landslide and for the catacombs to be revealed. Imagine what else the Lord's going to reveal in due time, man.
If I may
imagine nobody could find the catacombs until there was a landslide. So, go ahead.
That's right. Just to add to that heavy point you just brought there, and the Bible says the earth shall help the woman, right?
And the landslide helped the woman, man.
That's right.
That landslide helped the woman. Now we've been saying Jesus is black, but now we got proof from 2nd century and 3rd century art.
Right.
Yes, so go ahead, Benjamin.
Pictures in the catacombs and reliefs on sarcophagi are almost the sole remaining forms of Christian art that survive from the centuries of persecution.
Oh, and they said this is Christian art that survived the centuries of persecution. This is 2nd, 3rd century when Christians was being persecuted, and this is the art that they used to draw on the plaster wall. Oh, why do we see 3 black martyrs right there in the catacombs? Can you see that picture right there of them 3 black men?
Can't, sir. It's got names above them as well, sir.
It's got the names above them.
Yeah, Polycamus, Sebastian, and Holiness or something like that.
So this right here is 3 martyrs, man. 3 black men that died for believing in Jesus Christ. Why is the black people in the 2nd century in the catacombs, man? Why are they finding art from the 2nd century in the catacombs? Let's keep going. Why is there more black people right here in the catacombs, man? Do you know who these men right here are? These men right here is Christ and his men when they was feeding the people the fish and bread. Why is the picture of Christ and his black disciples in the catacombs? And this is pictures that they found in the catacombs, man. Why are all of them black? Let's keep going.
It's clearly white people.
Why is Jonah black, man, being thrown into the sea? Why is Jonah black with an afro? Listen, man, and guess what? All these is found in different catacombs, not one catacomb. So it's not one man that drawed all the same paintings like Michelangelo.
Right.
Michelangelo was a man that drawed all the same paintings. This right here is different brothers that was painting in different catacombs. So why is Jonah depicted as black right here?
Heavy. Why? That's a heavy one, Dam Gura. Heavy.
Someone come and battle me on the history, so lucky. I need someone come and battle me on the history.
Yeah, that's deep, because someone said to me a little while ago, "Oh, we don't believe you're the Jews," and Listen, I just go straight to the catacombs. Look, I don't even have to go through no scriptures. I just cut everything off. Look, it's right there. So
exactly. Look at Jonah with that afro, about to get that afro wet in the water, man. Look at that. Yeah. Jonah's about to shrivel up the afro once it touches the water, man. Look how they draw them with Negroid hair. And this is from the 2nd century. This ain't Byzantine art. This is catacomb art. Lucky, go ahead.
That's right. No, it's Lucky, sir. That's fine.
Let's keep going. Go ahead. Give me this one. All right. So Lucky said, did you say where you're reading from? Yeah, we're reading from a book called The Catacombs. But later on, I'll put the right one in the chat because there's going to be tons of them. But I guarantee you the price is going to go up on that book. I'll be stumbling on some finds. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Looking at the image of the good shepherd with the pail of milk.
So, who's the good shepherd?
Jesus Christ.
So, now let's show you a picture of Jesus Christ that they found in the catacombs as the good shepherd. Why is Jesus Christ depicted as black in the catacombs in the 2nd century?
All right.
Why is Jesus Christ black with an afro in the catacombs, man? This predates the Renaissance period. This is during the time of persecution. Why is Jesus Christ a black man with an afro, man? Let's keep going. Why? Look. See, if you look right here, There's Mary right there, and there's Christ as a baby right here.
What are they trying to do, sir? They're trying to mash up the wall with the painting on it.
So some of them, they say the paintings got damaged, but some of them, they say over time, because it's wet and moldy down there. As soon as you touch it, it rips off. So some of the images they tried to restore. So Lucky, go ahead.
And so lucky, sir, if I may, this is older than the vault that Putin just opened, right? How many years, right, sir? Because he's saying it's 1,000 years ago he's won.
All right, so most that Byzantine art is about what, from the 9th century? And this right here is from the 2nd century, so this would be like 700 years prior.
Right.
So this would be like 1700 years age. Adrian Sark, is Jesus actually black? According to the Bible and history, Jesus Christ is black. Let's keep going.
No, he said no way.
So Lucky, get me this one. So now this is going to give you the years of the catacomb paintings. This gives you the years of the paintings. Lucky, go ahead.
The era of catacomb painting began about AD 200 or soon after.
Wait, it began when?
AD 200 or soon after.
It began AD 200 or soon after. So if they painted Jesus Christ as black in the year 200, what color was Jesus Christ, man?
That's right.
Jesus Christ was black. You can't get around it, man. Listen, there's no way around it. We studied, man, in the ISUPK. We've been studying.
Damn right.
For years. Commanding General Johanna's been studying this from the 80s. This has been out there from 1969. And this is what I'm saying, man. You ain't going to get around it. So, Lucky, go ahead.
And came to an end in the 5th century when burials ceased.
Someone said, is this the lost hidden sigma? I don't get what that means. So, Lucky. Wait, read that part again, Benjamin.
The era of catacomb painting began about AD 200 or soon after, and came to an end in the 5th century when burials ceased.
Wait. They stopped painting these images in the 5th century, which means, how come every image they painted of Christ was black, man? And they stopped painting these in the 5th century, and then what happened is, they forgot all about the catacombs, and then a landslide happened, and they went down into the catacombs and seen these black images that have been sitting in the vault for over 1,000 years, man.
Which
tell me that Jesus Christ ain't black.
Talakis, which overrides and decimate Michelangelo and all them people doing the painting over the real images. So that was Talakia. You're gone mute, sir. You're muted, sir.
Go ahead, Talakia. Go ahead.
Talakia, no, I just said what I said. That it kind of overrides the paintings. Was it Michelangelo painting the images white?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now it says most of these pictures is pictures of martyrs or saints. Get me this one. Let me get this one real quick.
All the paintings, as is usual in catacombs, were executed on a double layer of plaster. First of all, a strong mixture of lime and pozzolian.
So now this is letting you know that they would draw it on plaster. So this is letting you know how to draw those images. So people can't say that we went and drew those images and made them ourselves. Because this right here is history telling you how to draw the images. Take me to our work on the paintings.
Our work on the paintings has been limited and
basically, I'm going to skip this slide. This is just letting you know how they had to fix some of the images back. So, Lucky, go ahead.
The importance of the catacombs may be summed up in the words of D. Rossi in the...
Can you read this? That one, or is it too small?
It's a bit small. Otherwise, Lucky, I can, let me just make it bigger. Yeah, the plundering of the catacombs in order to obtain relics.
So now men started to plunder the catacombs, and as they plundered the catacombs, they started destroying the images. So a lot of the black images, they started destroying these images in the catacombs. But it's too late now, man. The truth's out there. We have the images now, man. So Lucky, go ahead.
Khan led to...
for time's sake, I'm going to skip this one. Give me this one.
Attempted it on a large scale. The results were disastrous. No one can say how much useless destruction was carried out in the name of false love and
Someone
antiquity.
said, can you greet Adam and Aris that actually showed me a channel and taught me about Jesus being black? Most High in Christ. Tell them keep sending more people to the channel for what they. Listen, man, if you're black or Hispanic, man, you get in the ISUPK, man.
That's
You're,
right.
you're gonna find out tons of great things in here. This is the place to be. Lucky, go ahead.
That's right.
Nkarawan Khan. It was not until the 19th century that the exploration of the catacombs was carried out in scientific.
So now they started to do scientific studies on the catacombs in the 1900s, whereas before this, the catacombs was just hidden away until the landslide, and then that's when they found out about it. Let me keep going. Now, who's this right here? If anybody can tell me who this is right here, I'm gonna buy you a costly array change. Someone tell me who these three.
Somebody, sir.
I was about to go. I was about to say, is that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
Wait, give him a hand. Listen, man. Even they're depicted as black. Why did can you see the afro on them?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. These men is in the fire, like the scripture says. So what? When they was in the tomb, they was writing Christian art, man. They was drawing biblical art. What did Ira say? So Lucky said, what about the woman?
Don't worry, man. I mean, if you give me the chain, I'll eat you. Don't worry, man.
What woman?
What is it?
What does it mean? What woman? So Lucky said, what about the woman that was down there? Because class is almost over. What does it mean? So now, look at that image right there, man. This is those three brothers that Nebuchadnezzar put in the fire. Can you see the afro on them? Or is it just me? Why are these men depicted with afros in the 2nd century? Why did these men have afros in the 2nd century, man?
And Salakia said, doesn't it not look like they got a garment on as well?
Hey, bro, and Most High in Christ. Salakia, say that again.
Don't it look like they've got like got a garment on, with the girdle right in the middle there?
And them niggas is in the fire, man, and they have afros on their head. Why? Listen, why is 2nd century art showing these men as being black? Because the men of the Bible was black.
That's right.
The Bible was black.
Right.
Aris Hate said, love from Trinidad. Most High in Christ, Trinidad, contact the school, man. Give Trinidad a hand, man. Listen, man, we're trying to reach all nations, man.
This is undisputedly the truth, sir. Heavy.
Listen, there's nowhere in the video that advertises this class. What do you say? Is this hidden Jews, Sigma, Riz? I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know about all the you went to the class in the videos, man.
Sorry, say that again.
You went to the class.
I don't know what it means. Oh, I think I know what it's on about. So now this is the brothers, man. This is Shadrach and them, and they're depicted with afros. Let's keep going. Look at this, man. Who's this right here?
Sorry, go on, Banyamin. I know you got this one.
Who's this right here, man? This is more black art found in the catacombs.
Catacombs concert. That's the Daniel in the Lions Den.
Give him a hand, man. Listen, man, you brothers is getting good with the images, man.
Easy.
And listen, imagine if we had this in a children's book with all the black images. Imagine if, you know what? That's what I'm going to try and do. Get a kid's book with all the black images, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to try and do. Because we've been lied to for too long. And now we're bringing out the facts and the history, which proves that Christ and all the men that followed him was black. Let's keep going. Who's this black man right here?
Well, I'm just gonna have a guess. First thing, what is it? Boy, I don't even know. Do you know what?
You can see the afro on the brother, right?
Yeah, you can see the afro and the brown. I know he's a black man, but
I'm gonna tell you who that is. That's Jonah when he came back and he was upset.
See.
He said, where's Jonah? Yeah. So this is Jonah after he was upset when the Lord didn't destroy Nineveh. So this is Jonah sitting down, black man with an afro, and so forth. Let's keep going. All right, let's read this before we go. Yakuam, that was Jonah. Oh, so lucky on about the previous one. Yeah, I think your feed might be a little behind, but yeah, Daniel was the one with the 2 lions. So lucky, get me this one so we can close it out.
Catacombs concert. The first problem is the dating of the paintings.
So now they're going into the dating of the paintings. Go ahead.
To what period are they to be attributed?
So now they're asking what period should we attribute these paintings to? So let's find out. Go ahead.
Is it fairly easy to establish a terminus ad equum or a terminus a quo?
Now skip all of that Greek stuff and give me the Yakuam for water, man. Most High in Christ, Most High in Christ. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Since the paintings clearly have a funerary purpose, they must have been carried out before the very last of the burials took place in the catacombs about 410 AD.
They said these paintings was carried out before the last burial, which was in 410. So these paintings are all from before 410 AD. So lucky, go ahead. Hey,
They
Ira,
must,
Most High in Christ. That's lucky. Go ahead.
they must, in fact, be much older than this if
And
they
he said these paintings have to be way older than 410 AD, which is letting you know this art is going all the way back, man. This art is going all the way back. So lucky, go ahead.
be much older than this if they predated the burials and if
So now they're saying these paintings predated the burials. Now we don't have to learn history like the oppressor does.
That's right.
What we can do, we can get the history and show you that what we're getting is books which is not written by us. This is books which is written by people that like all of this stuff, and we just happen to stumble across the books and read, man. Imagine all this history is in plain sight and we don't know. Imagine what else is in plain sight that we're about to find out. And this is why it's so great that Commanding General Yohannes allowed us to have history classes in the ISUPK, man. Because now we can go over all the history, we can go over all the biblical history. You Christians in church, they don't know nothing about what we're going over right now. They don't know nothing about this. So we can also link history up with the Bible. Whereas, what's like saying to you the Jews are black? You probably say, oh, Jews like a lying. But now the catacombs is showing you that the Jews are black, man. So let's keep going. Lucky, go ahead.
Canada on cancer. Older than this if they predated the burials and if in the most recent of the cubicula there had been time to dig extra loculi which had not been planned when the cubiculum was originally built.
Yes, Lucky, go ahead.
And decorated. There had been time to break into the arch recess at the rear in order to install a slab to hang lamps from. There had been time for cracks to develop in the recess itself, and for
so
these
now they're breaking down how the pictures are old because there was cracks in this, and they checked all of it that way. Go ahead.
And for these to have been filled up and repaired. All
and so
this
get the likes up. Get the likes up.
Yeah, for real. Let me get it up.
Get them likes up, man. get them likes up. What we're gonna throw a tantrum for Lucky.
That's right.
Likes up. What we're gonna throw a tantrum. So Lucky, say that again. So Lucky, go ahead.
All this leads one to suppose that a considerable period elapsed between the construction and decoration of the cubiculum,
Go ahead.
the latest, and the year 410. So like I said, that's it.
So now listen, they're saying the latest these pictures could have been drawn is in the year 410. Hold on, let me remove myself from the stream. It says the latest these pictures could have been drawn is in the year 410. So this is letting you know that this is ancient art, man. This is old art. This is ancient art, which goes back to the 2nd century and 3rd century. So this art right here, this ain't new art. They found this in the catacombs, man. And they said that those catacombs was abandoned for like over 1,000 years. And it's such a good thing that the Lord made them not be able to find those catacombs. You know why? Because if the press had found those catacombs, guess what he would do? He would have painted all those images in the catacombs white, man. And the Lord made them not be able to find those catacombs. And you know what, Salakia, I just realized we're over the time. Salakia, clap it up. As you know, I don't go past 9 o'clock. Salakia. I don't go past 9 o'clock. Salakia. Hakian, you got the security announcements?
No, again, I haven't,
All right, then you can call it. So also, remember we got the feast day, June 17th. Coming down to that. Tomorrow we also have the scripture breakdown class with Captain Karafi coming down to that. What else do we have? We also have the radio show on Friday. Also, if you want any specific history broken down, just inbox me on Facebook or whatever. Just inbox me on my Facebook, Dumgabar ISUPK. Just hit me up, and then obviously that way everyone can learn the history that you want to know, and then we can go over it in classes. Also, with that, for everyone lagging in, clap it up. Aris H, the next live stream is from the UK, will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. So we have classes here Monday to Friday. So you can catch the ISUPK Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. till 9. Just log in the classes. You can also catch classes from brothers overseas as well. Their classes is midnight UK time. So whatever class you catch, just log in and so forth. And Slaki, go ahead, Hakan.
Television Amarjim. Amarjim Shabbat. Amarjim. Barak. Yahweh Shabbat.
Yahweh Shabbat Kafam.
Yajimata. Class dismissed.
All right, for water again, Hakayan, for water Benjamin, for water to everyone logging in. Shalom will be here tomorrow. All right, Shalom Israel.
Shalom.
Shalom, sir.
Shalom, Benjamin.